Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a small log cabin in a place called Hardin County, Kentucky. His family was poor, and they lived on a farm. Lincoln's early life was very difficult. His family did not have much money, and they often had to move from one place to another, because they could not find good land to live on. However, even though his family was poor, Lincoln always believed in hard work and education. When Lincoln was young, he did not go to school often because there was no school near his home. But he loved to read. He would read anything he could find: books, newspapers, and even the Bible. He taught himself how to read and write. His parents were not well educated, but they encouraged him to learn. Abraham was a very curious child, and he loved to read books about history, law, and science. This passion for learning would help him a lot in his future. Abraham Lincoln had to work hard when he was a child. His family was very poor, and they needed to earn money to survive. He worked on the farm, helping with planting and harvesting crops. He also worked as a store clerk, a surveyor, and even a rail splitter, which meant he helped cut wood to make fences. Despite all this hard work, Lincoln never gave up on his dream of learning. When Lincoln was 21 years old, he decided to leave his family and go to New Salem, Illinois. There, he worked as a shopkeeper and began to get involved in politics. He was a very honest and hard-working person, and the people in New Salem liked him. They called him Honest Abe because he was always fair and truthful. Lincoln wanted to become a lawyer. To do this, he needed to study the law. At that time, there were no law schools like we have today. Instead, people studied law by reading books and working with other lawyers. Lincoln did not have much money to buy books, but he was determined to become a lawyer. He read all the law books he could find and worked hard to learn everything he could. After many years of studying, Abraham Lincoln became a lawyer. He started his own law practice in Springfield, Illinois. He was very good at his job because he was smart and always worked hard to understand the law. As a lawyer, Lincoln became well known for his honesty and fairness. He was a man of great integrity, and people trusted him. Many of his cases were about small disagreements between people, but he always tried to make sure that the right thing was done. Abraham Lincoln was not only a lawyer but also a man who cared deeply about his country. He believed that the United States should stay united and that all people should be free. In the 1830s and 1840s, the country was divided over the issue of slavery. Some people believed that slavery should be allowed in the southern states, while others believed that slavery should be abolished. Lincoln thought slavery was wrong. He believed that all people should be free and equal. In 1834, he decided to enter politics and run for a seat in the Illinois state legislature. He worked hard to convince people to vote for him, and he won the election. He became a member of the state legislature and worked hard to make laws that were fair to everyone. In the 1850s, Lincoln became even more involved in national politics. He joined the newly formed Republican Party, which opposed the expansion of slavery into new territories. In 1858, Lincoln ran for the U.S. Senate against a man named Stephen A. Douglas. Although Lincoln did not win the election, his debates with Douglas were very famous. The debates were about slavery, and they helped Lincoln become well known across the country. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln ran for President of the United States. At that time, the country was in a very difficult situation. The Southern states wanted to leave the Union and start their own country, because they wanted to continue allowing slavery. The country was divided, and there was a lot of anger and fear. Lincoln promised that he would not let the country break apart. He said that he would not allow slavery to spread to new territories, and he wanted to keep the Union together. Many people in the North supported him, but people in the South did not like him because they wanted to keep slavery. In November 1860, Abraham Lincoln won the election and became the 16th President of the United States. Soon after Lincoln became president, many Southern states decided to leave the Union and form their own country, called the Confederacy. This led to the beginning of the Civil War, which would last from 1861 to 1865. The Civil War was one of the most difficult times in American history. It was a war between the Northern states, the Union, and the Southern states, the Confederacy. The main issue was slavery. The Northern states wanted to end slavery, while the Southern states wanted to keep it. As president, Lincoln had a very difficult job. He had to make decisions that could save the country, but he also had to deal with many challenges. The war was very bloody, and many people died. Lincoln had to find ways to keep the soldiers motivated, and to make sure that the Northern states could win the war. One of the most important things Lincoln did during the war was issue the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. This was an order that said all enslaved people in the Confederate States were free. This was a very important moment in American history, because it meant that slavery would eventually end in the United States. Lincoln also worked to keep the Union together. He wanted to make sure that the country would remain united after the war. He believed that the United States was one country, not two separate countries. He worked hard to encourage people to support the Union and to fight for freedom. Abraham Lincoln was a great leader. He was honest, kind, and always worked for what was best for his country. Even though he faced many challenges during the Civil War, he never gave up. He knew that the United States needed to stay united, and he was willing to do whatever it took to make sure that happened. One of Lincoln's greatest qualities was his ability to listen to others. He listened to his advisors, his soldiers, and even ordinary people. He knew that he did not have all the answers, but he was always willing to learn from others. Another important thing about Lincoln was his ability to stay calm in difficult situations. During the war, there were many times when things looked very bad for the Union. But Lincoln did not panic. He always kept his focus on the bigger picture and worked to make decisions that would help the country in the long run. Abraham Lincoln's leadership during the Civil War helped save the United States. He kept the Union together, and he ended slavery in the country. He is remembered as one of the greatest presidents in American history. On April 14, 1865, just after the Civil War ended, Abraham Lincoln was tragically assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, a man who disagreed with Lincoln's policies. Lincoln died the next day, but his legacy lived on. Today, Abraham Lincoln is remembered as a symbol of freedom, equality, and unity. His speeches, such as the Gettysburg Address, are still studied by people all over the world. In this speech, Lincoln said that the United States was a country of the people, by the people, for the people. These words are very important because they remind us that the government should always serve the people, not the other way around. Abraham Lincoln's life is a story of hard work, determination, and love for his country. Even though he faced many challenges, he never gave up on his dream of making America a better place for all people. His story continues to inspire people around the world to fight for freedom, equality, and justice. Abraham Lincoln's life shows us that no matter where you come from or how difficult life may seem, you can achieve great things with hard work and determination. He is remembered not only for his role in ending slavery, but also for his leadership during one of the most difficult times in American history. His words and actions continue to inspire people around the world to work for a better future. Through his story, we learn that it is important to always stand up for what is right, even when it is hard, and that we should never give up on our dreams. Abraham Lincoln's legacy will always remind us that a better world is possible, and that we each have a role to play in making it happen.